Okay, quick build update here. I've had enough people ask me about some of the stuff that's been changed or what's been going on, and figured to give everybody like an idea. So you kind of have to go with whatever runes you get. If you don't have certain runes that have dropped for you, they're not you're not really using them. So if I haven't had something drop for me, I'm not really talking about it yet. So like in green runes, still waiting to get this to drop. I think this looks like it'll be good for the minions and whatnot, stuff like that. So I'll just be talking about kind of what's dropped for me and what I've tested or what I think might work pretty good. So in that case, this is kind of what's dropped for me so far. So right now I'm using Seal of Element Resist, mainly because we're minion builds, and so much element resist you're not going to have on your gear. The big problem with minion builds is really these rings, and then if you get this necklace, you don't have any resists. So you're going to have to deal with that thing. That's why I'm using that. Also, it's the thing that's dropped for me. So Seal of Element Resist is working for the minions for now. Summon Lightning Rune Knight. I've been testing all of them out. I thought Wrathful Rune Knight would be really cool. The problem with him is I don't really understand this buff he's doing here. It says he casts Enrage periodically. It doesn't seem to affect the Abysslings. So he's kind of out for me for right now. When you're leveling, still, I would do the attack speed and whatnot. Rune Knight, he's definitely the best for leveling. Or the Fire Rune Knight. But this is more for endgame stuff that we're going to talk about. And right now my minions need crit. So we're doing the Lightning Rune Knight. And then I've geared a lot of the build around trying to make the Lightning Rune Knight work with this. And he has so far, so he's been pretty good. So I'll go over all the links and everything real quick. But the things I've had drop is Mana Storm. I didn't even realize Mana Storm worked on the minions. Like I knew it worked on minions, but I didn't realize it worked on the Javelin minions. So for single target, I take Chain off usually, throw Mana Storm on. If you can find a spot to just use Mana Storm on, I would. As a minion build, the mana cost isn't going to help you, or isn't going to be that big of a problem. It's really only a problem if you're casting fast. So, no big deal. You get the dot amplification for your bleeds, if you're doing the bleeds. And the strike damage amplification is pretty big. So, as you've seen, like, Armor Pen, 9,000 DPS increase, not really that big of a thing. 48,000 for Mana Storm, so that's pretty crazy. So I think it's even bigger than, no, it's a little bit lower than the minion damage, but it's also only level 22. So once we get that to highest level, that'll change a lot of things for us here. But yeah, that's going to be the main things. The main setup's still kind of the same. It's kind of a basic setup for Javelins, I think. You're going to use a damage node here if you don't have minion damage. You can go with additional physical damage. You can put Endless Pain to bleed. You know, you can kind of do whatever you want there. This is just... I use these as examples because you have these. These aren't hard to get. You're going to have these. This isn't an issue. So, Chain could be an issue. So for people that are having an issue with finding Chain or hasn't dropped for you yet, if you want to use the Javelin Abysslings and you want to just move over from maybe if you're using poison or something like that, you can go ahead and use split. So that works decently for them. You can use split projectile. It fans out to the side, both sides, and it'll help kill the groups. You can use pierce. Pierce doesn't reduce your damage at all. In fact, it just keeps increasing your damage and keeps increasing the pierce count as you go. So pierce works pretty well. It all depends on your clear speed. If you have things that are grouping up on you, you're going to want to use chain because it's going to chain back and forth. If you just are killing everything really quick, you can just put pierce on because you're just going to pierce through the first group of enemies and move on to the next. So it's all about kind of what you're doing. It's the same thing goes for things like projectile acceleration. Not the best one for your setup, but if you're against a boss that's moving very quickly and you see that the majority of your projectiles are just missing him while he's jumping around, switch to projectile acceleration. It'll help you do a little bit more damage to that boss. So we have things like that. I moved over to quick attack on the minions, mainly because it's faster. You get more attack speed. I went over this in a different video, in one of the first build videos, so I'll try to just go over some of the things that I've already gone over quickly. If you're interested in what to use for your attack, if you're not using the Abysslings, or if you're using minion speed, they all have a reason. If you see with the new Abysslings, you have yourself Abyssling movement speed here. It seems to go up with every single upgrade. I'm guessing that you want movement speed as much as possible, so they run in and blow up just as quick as possible. I don't know if Abyssling movement speed is going to increase the damage they do too. It doesn't say anything. It says attack speed increased. So yeah, I haven't had these drop yet to test them, but if someone else has, if you just want to leave in the comment or something, let me know if you think that they're good or what they'd be used for. Pretty good for easy clearing, or if you have like some kind of raid boss that has a bunch of ads going. I'm not sure how to use these yet, but we'll go over those next time when I finally get them. Anyway, we'll go back over new things that have kind of come out too. There's some new things that might help your minion build. We have different seals, seal of critical chance. These are things that are kind of hypothetical for me. I don't have this. And I've had a lot of people bring up that seals can have an aura. So it says here that it affects you only. But if you take it to like yellow, red quality, you have an aura on you, it says. Does this work? Well, I'm going to test it here in just a second and kind of see if it works with Seal of Destruction. And that's going to be some of the things that you might have that I don't have yet. So if you get those kind of things, let me know. Only thing I've had drop is Seal of Condensed Destruction, which I took up and turned to rare quality just to find out if this aura is going to work. And I left Seal of Element Resist because I mean, the minions having resist is great for some things, but I didn't care about putting a rare rune on it yet. Alright, now to get to some of the build things really quickly for you. Lightning Rune Knight. Basic setup. Time acceleration. Bring him up as much as possible, especially if you're only using him. If you're using multiple Rune Knights, might not need this. You can just kind of switch back and forth between them if you have something you want to put here. But it helps me get him up just a little bit quicker. Like, let's see how much faster that is. It's 40-second cooldown. You pop that on, you almost shave 10 seconds off. So 10 seconds faster getting him up during a boss fight could be a big deal. Then we're just keeping him up long enough. If you're trying to do damage with the Rune Knight, go ahead and put minion enhancing abilities on him if you want. But we're just keeping him up for as long as possible. It's the same reason why I only have him 5 linked instead of 6. I didn't try to bother to 6 link him yet because I'm not sure what I'd want to put on the 6 link and I don't have room for it right now. So just kind of go with whatever you have room for. If you've unlocked some of these already because you've had some 6 links you put in, you wanted to do that, that's fine, but I haven't done that yet. So minion armor, minion HP, continuous shock, just to get the shock rate up again, and the minion body shield. Anything you see that's blue, I either turned blue, or I thought that it was important enough to the build that I turned it to a magic quality type of ability. So some people that have that question, like what do I turn into a magic quality? Well, for me, it felt like body shield was stronger and minion armor than the HP, because I just need them to take reduced damage. If they have a bunch more HP, they just kind of die faster anyway. I didn't notice that massive HP gains were keeping him alive much better. Anyway, time acceleration was on multiple abilities I use, and I would put it on even more if I could fit them. But that turned into a blue quality. It's only a 5% increase, but we're going to probably take that to max eventually. Enhance dropped for us. So since we have Enhance, and when I say dropped, just they come out of the guild boxes and synthesize. But it enhances all of the skill rune effects. So if you do get Enhance effect, it works on almost everything. Even if I was to put it on Mark of Focus, it works on Mark of Focus. So almost anything that you have as a minion build will work with your Enhance effect. So pretty good rune to get if it drops for you, and I would use it. Next thing that we had drop was Tenacious Regeneration. I was using Bulwark for a long time, and Bulwark's very good if you need the element resist in the armor, but since we have Seal of Element Resist here, I switched to this. It's still only level 25, but it's almost like an additional potion. When you use it, you just get healed back to full. The potions don't heal us back to max right now anyway, unless you spec for it. So, you may want to do something like Tenacious Regeneration just to heal yourself during boss fights and whatnot. And then attached to it, same as some of the other things, Time Acceleration, Increased Duration, which Enhance effect works on it, and I'd rather have that than the Increased Duration right now. And then had this drop Vitality Recovery, and that's one of the reasons why I'm using Tenacious Regeneration, because I just want to test this out. Every time I pop this, and then it has its 5.1 seconds go off, you have this going off for 10 seconds still, and it's giving you your mana regen and your HP regen. So just some defensive setups. If you don't have these, then things that are always going to be there is things like Bulwark of Protection, stuff like that. Things that you can activate. If you have the activation abilities, go ahead and use those. I have not had one drop for me yet. So I unlocked a trigger slot, just wanted to see what it did. And you need to have an activation rune to use this. So at least I don't know how to use it without one. So if you get an activation rune, let me know how cool that is for you. Being able to activate these kind of abilities and free up a slot would be pretty cool. Next kind of thing that we have to go over is just the basic things. The other minion videos, I go over kind of gather minions and all these things. So just the new stuff is kind of what I wanted to go over, but still gather minions attached to time acceleration and to increase duration right now. I would do more with this if I can, but as you see, it's kind of crowded here. This is pretty much maxed out what we're doing here. And there's better setups, I'm sure, but this is what we have going on here. Just like I told you with Tenacious Regeneration, it can attach to Enhance effect, but I didn't really want to roll over and over again on it before I made this video, so this is what it is right now. Anyway, same thing with Mark of Focus. Let's say you're casting a spell with it, and I'll go over that in just a second, but you might be doing that, and I used to do that too, so we can do that. And then here's the movement. So the movement setup, you might wonder, well, what's the best movement to use? Do I want to use roll? Do I want to use teleport, leap attack? Why do people use more than one? What's the deal going on here? So the reason why you'd use more than one is because you want to use more movement skills. Not some of them are tied together, some of them aren't. So in this case, if you look at the cooldowns on them, roll is 4.5 seconds with what my setup is. 4.8 seconds on teleport with what my setup is, and leap attack's only a 3.2. Let's move that off of, so it's a 3.6. There we go. Without actually looking at 5.4 seconds, 4.5 seconds, and 3.6 seconds. So I went with the teleport and the leap, mainly because we've spec'd out of the ability to dodge. So the nimble doesn't matter for me right now. And this seems to be the better setup for us right now. So teleport's going to give you your element resist. And if you can use it quite often, and you can also get it set up to increase duration, you got a 1.3 second space distortion, which is your element resist. And this can stay up for almost permanently depending on how you have everything set up. So if you set up your teleport pretty well and you have increased duration and everything on it, it can go pretty good. I don't have the room right now to move things around, and I wanted to have this guy a little bit more tanky. So this is how we have it set up. I just keep mentioning that because some people might ask, well, how come you didn't do this or do this? Well, you only have so much room in your tree, and until you unlock the rest of this, your build is going to be a little bit strange when you're first doing it. Anyway, the movement skills are basic setup. I think everybody kind of does something like this. Disarm and use count. I just wanted to explain what the difference was between the movement skills and why you might want to use one the way that I did. So leap attack, if you see in some videos that I'll link here, or some footage, you'll see that leap attack can be used almost continuously with this setup, and you can use teleport to get out of things, or whenever you see that maybe elemental damage is coming in. Just kind of leap behind things. Best thing with teleport is sometimes when you teleport, your minions teleport right on top of you with it, so it's kind of like using gather minions for free, just without the damage. So that's a lot of information on what you're doing with this, but I get asked it a lot. A lot of people ask why the movement skills are done in a certain way, and that's why they're done that way. For me right now. For the Javelin Abysslings, which we got to Legendary here. If you're wondering what to Legendary first, I mean, if this is your main skill, of course. The only thing you're really getting is the 50% damage and the 8% attack speed. It's really good. But if you don't have the money to level this up with your gold jet, or to make a legendary jet jewel with leveling, then just kind of chill on it and use the free runes that we get. So turning it to rare quality shouldn't be a problem. Setup we have here: minion damage, fine weakness, quick attack, multi-shot, armor penetration, and then the chain. Okay, so setup for the Javelin Abysslings. We got them to Legendary. So at Legendary you get the 18% attack speed and 150% Abyssling damage. If you've been playing and you're already in Chaos Dungeons, you've already got this to rare quality, which is the 10% attack speed and 100% damage. So that should be just fine. And in the next video, I'll show people how to get things into legendary quality quick. If you're wanting to do it quickly. It takes a lot of your in-game gold, but it's possible without waiting for the drops. Anyway, so here we go. Chain. Chain was leveled to 30. Reason being is it's dampening is horrible for your minions once it's... So level it up as soon as possible. I took it to rare quality first because I want the additional chain count. And that's how I do all of the upgrades to the skill link runes. So if you're wondering what skill link rune or why certain ones are yellow, the reason is that I want an additional effect more than just damage. Unless it's like you get amp. If you get amp or something strange, go ahead. But this is the reason why I did this. So we get the additional chain count. This is why this went rare. Minion damage only gives an additional 15% minion damage. So that's not a really big upgrade. So that's why we went with the Find Weakness. So Find Weakness, it's great. It gives you crit rate. We're trying to make a crit minion build. So this is something that works on your minions, especially until you get the gear to sustain them without something like this. And I would replace Find Weakness with something like Physical Amp Damage once it drops. But in the meantime, the reason why this has gone to rare quality is for that +6 crit rate. And as you see, it's pretty important to know little things like that. So if you throw this on and you wonder why, well, how come I'm not critting still, or I'm not getting a lot of crit? Critical rate percent's great, and the more you have, it's going to scale your crit higher, but it's not going to scale your crit near as high as getting crit rate. And that works the same on staffs. And I've upgraded my staff recently to the Ceftars. And it's got 80% Abyssling critical rate, which seems like it would be like a lot. But if you had a normal staff, and you just rolled a tier 10 crit for minions that rolls like +16 to crit, that would be more critical rate than this currently, just because we don't have any rate to really scale off of, if that makes sense. So if you have crit rate on your gear or on your staff, that's going to be a lot easier to scale than using something like Ceftars. Ceftars is mainly used for the +2 to minion skill rune level. The Abyssling damage and all this, you can get this on anything else. And the dampen damage taken while channeling, it's great. But all of this can be gotten on a different staff. The only reason why you use this is for the +2 to minion skill rune levels. And we'll go over the rest of that right now too, so... Well, let's actually finish let's finish these runes. So, once again, Find Weakness, we went to +6 crit rate. This is significant in how much more crit you're going to get. So if you're wondering what gem to take up, you can take this to at least blue, and the +3 is going to be a lot more than just getting your crit rate up. Because it'll give us something to scale off of. To give you guys perspective. Quick attack. Much more attack than minion move speed. Though minion move speed is probably going to be used if you leveled yours up already. Don't eat it. The minion movement speed on it is probably going to be used for the explosive minions. So wait till you get the explosive minions, see if you like the movement speed, and don't eat your minion speed gem yet, because you may still have use for it. Multi-shot. I'm planning on taking multi-shot legendary first. Maybe. I'm not sure yet, but it gets +2 more projectile count. That's the only reason why I took this to rare. And I also took it to rare because I was testing something. So once you get it to level 30, it's great. It doesn't have any more dampening. So you can put it on your abilities, and your abilities don't lose any damage. But something I didn't realize until I started using Candor runes was if you get it above level 30, you'll see that it starts getting projectile damage amplification. So I figured that this is something, I mean, it's not very much, but it does get it. So that's kind of cool that the dampening turns into amplification at one point once you start leveling things up. And Candor, the Candor abilities, when you put them on your skill runes, for every time you put a Candor on, you have a chance to get a yellow or a white socket. If the Candor procs multiple times on one socket without resetting, then it goes up in skill level. As you see, all the Candors get +1 already, but this one proc twice, so now it's +2. This will be a question I'm sure people will have, like why is that +2? Why is this level 32? Well, that's the reason why, if you haven't used your Candors yet. Also know that using a Candor rune makes the rune slightly unusable in a way, like you can't do as much as you could before. So make sure it's completely finished and you've taken it to level 30 and it's legendary and you have the six slots and what you want before you start using Candor. It'll tell you in game what there is. You'll be fine with that. But yeah, multi-shot +2 more projectiles. Does it help? It seems like the projectiles are really good. One thing I've noticed is that if I don't have multi-shot on, the minions shoot just those few projectiles out, and it doesn't seem very good. It doesn't feel good when you're trying to map. So I stick with multi-shot. And then armor penetration. Armor penetration is something I've been playing around with. I don't know. I did take it to level 30 because I felt like it was important. It feels like it's very good on the bosses. But for your general mapping and whatnot, you don't really need the armor pen most of the time, unless you've completely juiced up your map. And in that case, you may want to use the armor pen, but for general mapping and whatnot, you can use other things here. So, but I do like the armor penetration for now. That's what we're sticking with, but this is the general setup. When I go to bosses, I've been getting rid of this and throwing the Mana Storm in. And that's been the big update for just what we're doing with the Javelin Abysslings here. Everything else is pretty much a basic setup. This is what you do for like a full summoner setup. I'm not trying to cast too many spells. I'm not trying to do too much else. I'm just doing summoning and having the minions come out for my general mapping most of the time. A lot of that and then hopping around. So there you go. Now, other questions people might have is, what relic are we using? We've changed the relic a few times. The one I'm using right now is this Acubin. And I'll give you the reasons. So we have the crit rate. Minion crit rate goes up with this. Nothing else really is going to affect us too much. So, minion crit rate here. The new raid boss is electric. So let's say that you can dodge. Well, you got the dodge chance for shock. So this could help maybe against that new raid boss as well. But the reason why we're doing it is the minion crit rate. Active skills here. All these seem pretty good. It depends on what your summoner's doing. If you're going to do the overcharge, then you yourself are doing some kind of move with lightning for the shock rate. This is going to be if you're doing like a cast on channeling with your sacred devotion, and you have maybe chain lightning shooting out, or maybe the lightning typhoon, something where you want a higher shock rate on it. I don't have the relic high enough, so I haven't tested this too much, because the only thing I can get is the skill cooldown recovery speed. So the ones I have tested is Curse of Storm, which I think is fun. I put this on it for now just to test it. I think the bind chance for cursed enemies is cool, and just the longer range. You can use whatever you want. If you're new to maps or you just hit max level and you're going to use Acubin, I would stick with the Lightning Orb. The Lightning Orb does a pretty good amount of damage, and you can spec it for damage, or you can spec it to maybe more debuff things. So when I'm generally mapping, I would use something like this so that I get mana back and HP back. It says you recover 0.3% of max HP per stack, but then it says recover summoner's mana for 1 second on hit. It felt like it was giving me everything back. So I used something like that, and then I was using the area of effect just to get the larger hit in. So for bosses, damage amplification, cooldown recovery speed is going to be one of the best. And it also does the lightning damage. So you can hopefully get a shock off on this. Let me see if it even shocks. I haven't seen it shock too much, just so people know, but it does do a decent amount of damage. Now, if you're using a different one, all of them have their purposes. Like if you were using Sefdar's and you just hit max level, well, if not max level, but you just beat the final boss, well, Sefdar's is kind of like what most of the minion stuff is. It's just that Sefdar's isn't very geared toward minions. It's geared towards sentries here. You got your cast speed here, your spell dodge, and then the chaos resist. So the only redeeming things here really is this move speed amplification for us, and then the chaos resist. This could help you early game, but by the time your relic's level 30, you're probably just looking for more damage. If you're on a boss that you need the chaos resist, go ahead. But this is the one I started with because I thought Sefdar would be just kind of what you need. And it was pretty nice. If you use focus, you get the dodge rate. It's just constantly, you're just constantly going to have dodge rate. This will constantly give you critical rate, increase your elemental damage. So I was using the focus constantly just to get the dodge rate and the block because I was using a shield at first. And then eventually, since I switched to not being able to dodge, this entire setup kind of became useless. So since I'm using the hit point amplification and I'm using crit, we have Acumen. Kind of a detailed explanation of how it works, but I think people kind of want this. People have been asking all the time, like, what do I use? What would be a good one? This is a really good one to start with. You get the extra minion crit, you get the crit damage. The abilities that it actually does are kind of useful and fun to mess with. Castor, on the other hand, actually gives you minion skill rune level. So it feels like this would be the one you want in the end, but I'm not sure on that yet. Especially because the active skills don't necessarily do anything for my minions that I like. So I'm probably going to stick with the Acumen one. Also, one other thing to note with Acumen, or any relic for that matter that has an ability that shoots damage, that is pretty good. For boss fights, it hits for 1,000,000 damage, like over and over again. So it's not too bad. I actually enjoy using this. You can break pots with it and stuff like that, break destructibles. The other ability that it can do is the curse, and the curse happens no matter what you do. So if you do decide to go with the curse because you yourself are going to cast some moves, you can go ahead and do that. Then every time you do something like teleport, do a little jump, or even summon your minions out, it'll go ahead and debuff that target. Then they can just sit there and hit on it. Mainly the Lightning Rune Knight, you're hoping to do something like jump in, debuff everything, and then have him do a shock. So there we go. That's the reason why we use the relic that we do. I like this relic. You can even kind of sit back and while you're channeling, you're constantly shooting off that curse. Or the way I use it right now is for the damage. And you're constantly shooting off that damage. Yeah, I'm doing something. So that's why we use the relics that we do, and hopefully that'll help people realize what kind of relic they want to use. If you're having problems clearing a map and your minions aren't doing enough damage, things like this can help. Really, if your minions just can't do the damage and whatnot, you might even want to just use something like Capri, which will shoot multiple flame orb projectiles off, and these do a ton of damage and kill things. But this isn't a minion build anymore. If you're going this path, you're more trying to do damage yourself and having your minion support you. And in that case, if you're having your minion support you and you want to do the damage and whatnot, you might as well move over to the electric minions or the frost minions and just have them kind of freeze behind you or debuff the targets with electric damage for you. Something like that if you're trying to do the damage yourself. Okay. Kind of like usual, long video, but if you want crit on your gear, or you want to figure out how to gear yourself, crit comes pretty naturally for minions. You'll get most of it through your tree, but your rings, your necklace, your weapon, those are going to be your main crit that you get. You can get it on gloves too, but you kind of want to use your gloves for the attack speed if you can get it. If you get crit and you get full minion stats on here, that's great. I wasn't able to. And I just stuck with some of the resists and the minion attack speed here. But we'll go over kind of like what kind of gear we have going on here. So I'm using Seftar's Coexistence. Has the +2 minion skill rune level. And it rolled pretty high. And then this was not good when I got it. It didn't have the +1 to minion skill rune levels. And the damage was low here anyway. But I re-rolled it once and I got the +2. Just went with it. The Abyssling damage is great, but nothing too great. And the problem with the necklace is, yeah, you get the 1 Abyssling and you get the 2 minion rune skills. The rest of the stats aren't that great. They don't do much for you based off of neck. And it's only 5 skills. They didn't even add any resist for you. It could have been like +5 to all resist or something. But so that's what you get with Unity Token and Seftars. But if you do switch to something like this, if you decide to use Seftars, know that you're not getting that crit rate that you were getting on your old staffs. So like this staff that has the +16 to minion crit rate. This is a lot more minion critical rate than 80% crit, because this is a base crit. And I've gone over this a few times with people, but it's good to know this, because if you're just not critting very good and you're using a bunch of different gear that says % crit on it, that's not going to help you much. And also know that when something says critical rate or critical damage, it doesn't help you. It helps you, actually. It just doesn't help your minions. So it has to say minion critical rate. Like this attack and spell damage, this helps me. This doesn't help my minions. Just something for people to know. And a staff like this doesn't have much minion damage on it, but the Abyssling attack speed and the minion crit rate here was so much damage that actually finding a staff to outdo this one took a long time, just because of the attack speed and the crit alone. If you can, try to get a high crit rating. That one's like right here, like 16 minion critical rate. This will give you a lot of critical damage. Aside from that, I am using the unique staff, but most people are probably going to be trying to figure out how to make a staff, so that's a good way to make a staff. Abilities that you would really want on it would be things like the Abyssling damage, minion damage amplification, things like that. The best stats you can roll on this, I would think, would be probably attack speed, damage amplification, Abyssling damage, and then the crit. If you could roll tier 10 crit, that'd be very, very good. Rune Knights get a lot of stuff. I only kept this because it rolled very well for a staff, but it's for Rune Knights. Maybe the Wrathful Rune Knight will make use of this at one point. Things like that. But let's go to the actual gear that we're using. So a lot of people have asked, how do you get 3 Abysslings to summon at once? That's with the helmet here. So the helmet is prosperity, and the way to get prosperity is to do a Seftar map. To give context to that, let's see if we have any. It's these things. So whenever you get these resonant stones, you may want to save until you can all the Seftar ones, and then use as much magic find as you can to try to get some Seftar items. So you can prosperity items, that is. So if you get a Seftar staff, not this one, not the actual Seftar's Coexistence, but the prosperity staff, that can roll an additional Abyssling. So the best in slot staff is probably going to be something like the additional Abyssling, but in the meantime, this is what we're using. So once again, Seftar tokens, prosperity helmet, +1 simultaneous Abyssling count. What this is mainly used for is to summon out the additional Abyssling and general mapping and bosses. It's going to help a lot with running up on a group of mobs and being able to summon out that additional Abyssling and start doing damage. Next thing that you're going to need in your build is going to be the +3 to Abyssling skill rune level chest. If you don't have this, then the build is going to suffer a lot because it's +3 to Abyssling skill rune levels. It's very simple. This is the same thing as the helmet. Prosperity once again. So the same stuff applies. Staff is the same thing. So keep your Sefdar tokens. Keep them up. This is the chest that we rolled. It rolled kind of good. I haven't re-rolled the hit rating because I'm trying to use some spells with my build, and the chest rolled good enough that I didn't want to get rid of it. Air gloves. So air gloves can roll minion damage as a authority ability. Best in slot would probably be minion damage here if you could get it, and then minion damage again from the air authority, and then the minion attack speed, and then minion crit, so forth. But this is what we rolled. I've rolled the authority a few times. It was good, but 30% minion damage wasn't as much as the 11% minion attack speed, so I just stuck with that on the gloves. And it had good resist, so we're doing that. So that's it for your minion stuff. You're mainly getting your minion damage from your necklace, 2 rings, staff, or your one-hander and shield. This I would consider damage, since the simultaneous abysling count helps. And then also your chest. So if you add all that together, the minions go to level 38 right now. And that's also coming from a +1 to your rune skill here. So you're getting +8 to your skills, and it's mainly affecting the abysslings here. A lot of this stuff affects all the minions though. See level 34 right here. Doesn't seem to affect things like Unite Crowd. Doesn't affect Mark Focus. So you're only really getting the creatures are getting buffed. But still, level 38 Javelin Abyssling seems pretty good. And that's the main thing for the gear. How do you gear though? What's some things that you may want to do to gear? Well, your belt's going to be where you get most of your resistances from. Your necklace until you get a Unity token. If you decide never to use Unity token, which is fine, then you'll have resistances fine. And then your shoulders. So there are minion unique shoulders, but the problem with that is they don't have a lot of defense, and a lot of defense that you can get in this game come from the shoulders. I'm low on fire and cold, and I needed more armor. So there you go. I went with these for now until I find something better. Most of the setup we have is for bossing. So I went with the +1 movement skill rune max use here. I wish it was on a life belt. Don't take that I use the mana belt as the best belt. This is just what we're using, because this is the only air belt I've had drop. And I'm using it for general mapping too, so the kill experience kind of helps out. And then for my boots, I wish I had a level 91 boot so that they could roll tier 10 movement speed. But what rolled on here is pretty good. And I decided to stick with it, especially since it goes with the movement speed theme of getting the 9.2% movement skill rune cooldown recovery speed. So that's the gear setup we have right now. There's better gear setups, especially with rings. But this is just what I'm using. I haven't really found anything or rolled anything better yet. Charms. So charms are extremely important in this game. You're trying to get a Sefdar charm, and you're trying to get enough of the Sefdar blessing percentages, as you see right here, to equal whatever you're looking for on the tree. So in this case, we can get 40% easily, and that gives us the additional 30% minion damage. So throw that in until you get 30%, and then start looking for charms that actually help your minions too. If you can get things like this, or things like this, Very powerful. You'll see sometimes I don't get a good one. I just wanted the extra percent. Don't get an extra very good one at all. And just minion HP. Now, the mistake here is using all Sefdar charms. I have enough percentage with just these 3 to equal the 40%. And getting to the 80 isn't going to help us much. And getting to the 140 is going to be almost impossible with the current setup we have. So, what you're going to want to do is do something more like get these 3 charms, or get 2 if you can. Get to the 30% minion damage. Then stop working on the Sefdars. Keep the good ones that you find. And then these last 2 slots, or last 3, switch those over to a different charm setup that's actually going to help you with your current setup right now. So in this case, let's look over a random one. So HP here. So what I would want to do is get myself a couple of Hamals on here so that I can get the 10% extra HP probably. Let's say you need resists. Well, you get armor here. What's the next one here? All element resist. So use your charms wisely. Make sure you're equipping them and getting the maximum benefit from it. Letting everybody know that, because this is not a maximum setup. This is just me trying to see how much of the percentage I can get to, which is 53 right now. Not very good. So that's what we're doing there. And I believe that's all the setup that really would need to be looked at. Okay, final thing we have going on here. So here, let's summon him over here. Just see if he stops attacking that. He's psycho. Okay, so the last setup we have here is the Zodiac. Pretty basic minion setup. It's expensive to reset this over and over again, so I just have not yet. Dexterity is the way it is because I was looking for an extra 5 points for something I wanted to try. And the intelligence and strength are the way they are because I needed mana. If you don't need mana, because first off, when you're using a bunch of seals going on, the Javelin Abysslings, especially in some of the yellow maps where the mana amplification goes up, I've had them start to cost up to like 600 to 700 mana a cast. It's so much, costs so much, so that's why my mana is as far as it is. If you can go more HP, that would be the ideal thing to do. So, in this case, only get enough, unless you're using barrier, only get enough intelligence to use your items, and then put the rest into strength. Or into dodge, whatever the defense is that you're using. And I'm just going over that to help people with, who might be going with a certain setup. If you're going with certain rune setups, like let's say you have a focus defense, which gives you focus, you get the 30% dodge rate for 10 seconds, and you're using that constantly with one of your defensive abilities like Bulwark, well, you're not going to go you're not going to get rid of your dodge rating, you're going to keep using it, so that's what you can do for those kind of builds, but we'll go over both. Here, let's go over the Zodiac here. So once again, heavy on strength if you can. Does not need to be even like this. This is only because I wasn't sure what kind of gear was about to come out when they did the update, and I was wondering if I was going to need more intelligence. I would go more strength if I reset again here. So here's the build here. Pretty basic. All the way to the 20% minion damage. It's a pretty good node. This is the next tree that you unlock. Went with the minion damage again. And then I also spec'd for some armor and HP. This might be a little overboard on this 50 HP here. I mean, you can use the points better elsewhere, I'm sure. I couldn't figure out anything. Next tree that unlocks is this minion here. If this isn't appealing to you, or the minion HP here, I would skip these two and just go for the minion damage and hit rate and just this HP right here, just to get to the next tree if you want. Let's say you don't want any of this and you have a better way to spec for your defense over here. Go ahead and do that until you get to the next tree here. This is an all-around thing. This is going to give your minions that extra 10%. You get the damage and the hit rate, and you yourself are going to get a little bit of HP and mana. So I just went down this because it gives you a little bit of everything. This here is a weird tree. The minion damage percent HP increase I went with because I wasn't sure if it was going to feel uncomfortable without it. At this point I would take it out with the next respec I'm going to do, and I'd probably just get maybe just this extra 10% minion damage if I can. I haven't noticed them needing the hit rate as much. If someone else needs the hit rate, or you notice your minions start to miss a lot, like, it's really bad if they miss, so let me know on that. Right here was just I had an extra point. Here is the main build. So this is going to be pretty much what I call the ascendancy points, the limited trait points. Extra abysling, overpower. If you're having mana problems and whatnot, go for convert mana and whatnot. If you're using the overpower rune on your minions, then I mean you don't need this, but this is going to be kind of probably what most people go, because this is maximum minion damage on this tree. Everything else kind of affects you or something else. We'll go over the next limited trait since we're here. Damage amplification and the sharpness, because we are a crit build. Unite power is extremely powerful for just 2 points, and you also get the mana dampening cost. And then the last tree here, I used to be stat transfer, but I just don't have enough stats to get maximum on this. And because we moved to the Sefdar staff, and I don't have that 35% abysling attack speed anymore, I had to switch back to acceleration. If you have a staff with it on, may want to skip out on acceleration and go for the extra damage that this would provide, or maybe even the twisted strength for maps. If you are having your minions die quite often, every single time you summon them, they start with these stacks. So this is going to be a big increase if you're just summoning over and over again. This tree helps fill out that crit that your minions will need. There is no base damage here that I went, so this is just all crit. Missing out on stuff like base damage does make the minions feel like they do a little bit less at first. But you need it. You need the crit. Okay, so down here, this tree, this is a complicated tree. Everything on here is very good. And this is what I went with. I was obsessed with the minion attack speed, so I went and got that quick node there. It feels like going these three I might spec out of at one point here and just go for these two and even get the minion damage amp. But while you're leveling, I would definitely go with something like this and then start going down the crit at the end of the game there. Don't go crit first, go the attack speed first while you're leveling. Over here, minion armor penetration. This is definitely for bossing. You don't need this for mapping. If you're doing general mapping, I have not needed the armor penetration very often, though maps do roll with additional armor on the mobs, so go ahead and spec into this if you're having problems with armor pen. Last thing down here, I went with the crit and the attack speed again. This is another area where we might change a bit. I might reduce some of the attack speed since we're starting to get a lot. And spec into elsewhere. It's most likely the bleed for the minions. This is specific to my character. If you need to get your resistances from somewhere else, go ahead and go down that path. If you need the armor, go ahead. I'm on a certain boss in the void that sometimes the chaos damage is killing me, so I just wanted this extra chaos. And that goes for all defensive nodes. Defensive nodes are very, especially the elemental nodes once you go down them. You're looking for the dampening. The resist don't matter as much since you will get that on your gear eventually anyway. But the max resist and the dampening on the tree, these are the things that you're going for if you can. Not necessarily this tree. What's another tree that has the dampening here? Really, any tree that has something like that, that has amplification or dampening on it, you can go down. So that's all the main stuff for the trees there. We have this last tree here, mainly going down the crit, because we are crit abysslings. Now, I have been down the bleed. This did more damage, of course. You get 15, 15, and 4% amp. So this was hitting harder. And you get the free bleed. Just the 8 bleed rating randomly procs. Very low chance, by the way, but it does happen. So it's a good way to go. But we don't have enough points. I needed more resistances myself, so we got the crit damage. And I figured I'd just kind of go into detail on why I'm speccing this way and maybe a lot of other people that are doing crit or the way people are doing things. If you see someone going a lot more into armor, they need, you need the armor. If you're using a shield, you might be going into block expertise. If you decided to go down the dodge path, then you're going dodge. Reasons why you might do that is because those are the seals you got. Maybe you got seal of dodge, you want to make a dodge person. So there you go. You won't be going the amplification that way. Instead, you're probably going to go over here. Oh, my bad. Farmer, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you're probably going to go over here. And even though this 9% damage now doesn't help us much, you'll probably do something like this. Since HP regen is hard to get anyway, and unless you have some on your gear already, you're not regenning much without your potions, so this is another good place to go if you don't want to do the dodge build, the non-dodge. It takes more points, and this point's useless. But in the end, you're going to get this, and you're going to get these 2 points here. And you can also go other places on this tree. The tree is pretty good for resistances, but there you go. I think I went over all of this tree here. I didn't go over something. Go ahead and message me, but I'm pretty sure that's the whole thing. Okay, already a pretty long video, but I think people like to see things that are maybe interesting for your build, since what you're doing all day is you're grinding, and you're going to be grinding forever. So just randomly doing other things is sometimes kind of fun. Some things that might work with your build. Let's say you are heavy into the element, maybe poison abysslings, or you would like your lightning rune knight and your relic and whatnot to do a little bit more damage and whatnot. So you can go ahead. Well, I guess the relic already pierces, but that's fine. Plague spike, 10% element resist dampening when you hit something with it. It explodes, does a little bit of poison damage to everything. And if you wanted to put your mark of focus up that way, you could. So this works with any spell that you can shoot out, but you may want to do something like that. So let's say you're tired of just using mark of focus. In my case, I like using mark of focus immediately and knowing that it gets on the target that I target. But if you want to just have some fun, you might want to use Plague of Spike. Walk up and hit a target and then mark it that way. instead of actually cast it. Also, if you're using a relic that shoots, like I am right here, kind of gives you something to do, and you're shooting out that 1,000,000 damage too when you shoot, and the relic doesn't really miss. So that's kind of cool. This is something I started testing out, using that in Whirlwind and whatnot, mainly because some of my gear, like the chest piece rolled hit rating, and my boots rolled this hit rating and stuff, so kept rolling hit rating on gear, and the rest of the gear was good, so I was like, you know what, maybe I'll try to use the hit rating. If you don't have hit rating, know this. When you try to throw out one of these spells, it doesn't hit, and then the mark doesn't go off, and the combo is, you know, you teleport, you have the mark up already, you teleport, then you gather minions, and you start channeling. And if you have to stop and you have to cast and whatnot, you might find that to be annoying. But some people don't know that you can mark on hit with Mark of Focus. So, spell activation on spellhead, I mean. So, knowing that's sometimes kind of fun. Another thing that you can do, which I think everybody kind of knows, but is still fun to do sometimes, is to link something to your Sacred Devotion. In this case, with the kind of build I'm using, it would be something along the lines of this Typhoon. Chain Lightning, you know, anything would really work. Depends on what element you're trying to debuff there. And in this case, I'd be using the Relic. And let's say I don't want to do Lightning Orb anymore. Since I'm going to be doing it, I can do Curse of Storm. So this is going to curse things, give the shock chance go up. This will increase my shock chance and lightning damage. I don't do any damage though, I'm just looking for the shock chance. So let's go ahead and do this with the chance to bind on cursed enemies and the debuff skill rune effect range. Let's do the rune effect. So now that we have that, every time we like kind of jump in, you got that mark up on the targets, and every time you channel, you have a higher chance to get that shock off. Is it very effective? Not really, but it's extra stuff to do while you're summoning, and it's kind of fun. The Lightning Typhoon, is it the one I'm recommending? No, this is just what I have right here. Chain Lightning has a much higher shock chance. So look at the chance of whatever debuff you're trying to do is before you decide to attach it, because if you yourself are not going to do a lot of damage with whatever move you're using, it's mainly going to be to debuff for your targets. But yeah, just a few things I've seen. A few people have asked when they've seen me leveling different abilities. You know, what are you doing there? Why are you using that? Well, for fun mainly, and also because it does provide a slight more of a debuff for the target and whatnot. Other things that I don't know 100% about yet is these auras. If you do have an aura, everybody keeps telling me that they give an aura out to your minions too. So it says affects yourself, but if you get it up, you get the aura. Don't know that this works yet. I don't have it, but if it works, it'd be great. I've had multiple people bring up these auras to me, saying that they work. So I'll try one of them here in a moment. But for the most part, there's a lot of different build things. We went over the whirlwind and a bunch of other things that you could do in another video. But those are things you can do. Make sure that you're not using too much amplify for your character. So if you're using a few seals already activated, you're always going to have Unite Crowd activated. And I've tried using things like Enduring Pain and whatnot just to get the extra armor. All of these are very good, but you just have to use whatever you're based off of, like whatever your character needs.